Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin, and sitting across from me, as always, is my beautiful blushing bride, Londa Sherwood Austin. And
hello.
I love what you got cooking today, Johnny Cash shirt. Show our friends on YouTube. Lovely, high fashion.
Ring of fire.
You've got kind of a high fashion thing going today, and I like it. The white and the black and the shoes. I don't know how we get that on screen. You know, our recording device is not getting your feet right now, and I guess we don't need to get your feet. That has nothing to do with anything. I'm wearing
a Johnny Cash t-shirt. It's not high fashion.
You look like a French model today, and I look like somebody's dad dressed in Florida wear, and I like that.
Oh, my goodness.
The Session is a show that typically celebrates customer service experiences, and this episode's going to be a little bit different, and here's what I mean. We're going to talk more holistically today about our entire situation so that we can then segue into healthcare and how to treat people when they're kind of at their worst, right? And it's a very scary thing to have a diagnosis, especially a cancer diagnosis. My mother died of cancer upon her second or third recurrence of breast cancer.
My dad died of cancer.
Mm-hmm. And that is a scary, scary thing. So we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different aspects so we can have a holistic picture and then talk about the rights and the wrongs in
customer service and healthcare, maybe.
I'm hoping
that's where we go.
That's exactly right. So,
I'm very nervous.
You should be, because this is a very personal story for you. Mm-hmm. So let's start from the beginning. You were married for
26 years. I had a very successful 26-year marriage.
That's exactly right. To a guy that I absolutely adore.
Well, he's the father of my children.
7 children that you birthed.
Yep.
All without drugs.
Yeah.
You're smoking a little drugs now dealing with the 7 children.
But that's not true. Much easier now. No one wakes me up in the middle of the night. I mean, it's great.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I, too, was married for 20 years in a very successful marriage. In fact, my ex-wife, Sarah, said to me when we were talking about divorce, you know, David, they write stories about restaurants that last 20 years. And those stories are all glowing about how successful the restaurant was when they are deciding to shut it down because it's been in the family for 20 years.
And it's a good point. Nobody says, ooh, it only lasted 20 years.
And no one writes that article about divorces. Always they say failed marriage or relationship died. Speaking of dead relationships, Bennifer may be back.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just commiserating. I don't know, and I don't care.
For those who don't know who Bennifer are, in the early 2000s, I think around 2002, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez were a hot item. And, you know, they've been seen for the last week or so somewhere like Montana, vacationing together. And that's fun. Love will find a way. I don't know.
My gosh.
I don't know. Anyway, the reason I bring up our marriages is because when your marriage ended, you have been blowing and going 100 miles an hour ever since then.
Which a lot of people do, right? It's a very common trauma response to just fill your calendar.
Right.
And that's what I did. I worked excessively. I played really hard. And I just was running a good solid 15 hours a day, working out twice a day, like just doing 2-a-days, doing all the things that you do when you don't want to deal with how you really feel about everything.
Feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
Feeling your feelings is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I was in that 4,400 square foot house by myself intermittently between girlfriends that I moved in and then moved out again for at least 2 years. And I can say that all of the relationships that I had during that time, I think of very fondly. Everybody that I dated, I'm friends with, and I have no regrets.
You and I are different, but carry on.
I'm just saying, maintaining friendships, and just because a relationship may not work in one aspect
Sure. I get
doesn't
what
mean
you're
there
saying.
should be no relationship, right? And
Right.
I only ever went out with people that I was attracted to on multiple levels, right? Not just, hey, I think you're hot and want to see what you look like with no clothes on. You know what I'm saying?
I hear the words coming out of your mouth. Yes.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is we both had several relationships, some good, some bad, some fleeting, some longer than others, but we filled our calendars with people and stuff.
Yeah. And work. I
Yeah.
worked a lot. A lot.
Often to not feel the feels.
Absolutely, to not feel the feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have gotten that out of the way, what's next?
I
In your
fell
story.
in love with you. I don't know.
Well, actually, that was an interesting part of the story that I don't think we've told publicly to many people. You're, of course, a real estate agent licensed in Washington, and I'm a mortgage lender, not a broker, but a mortgage lender licensed in Washington.
Yep.
And after you got your divorce, I had no knowledge of your divorce situation because we weren't running in the same circles. We were always friendly, and
Right.
I did your home loan 11 years ago for you and Jeff.
Yeah. But we didn't really know each other. We were just,
Right.
I knew of you peripherally, kind of.
We were
but
acquainted and in public friendly acquaintances.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one Sunday we sat at church with you and your ex-husband, and that was
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
That was lovely.
So then, I don't know, a couple of months after my divorce was final, we met for a business meeting to talk about work, I guess. That's what, anyway.
Well,
I don't know how many details you want to get
Well,
into here.
I'll tell the story from my perspective, and if I say anything that's not true or you feel differently about, let it out. So anyway, let's say it's February
Or March.
or March.
It was March.
And I go to, who'll know this? All of Century 21 will know this. There was a Century 21 logo reveal
Yeah,
party.
it was like their rebranding kind
That's
of party,
exactly
and they
right.
did a fashion show on the stairs, and it was fantastic.
I think it was a Wednesday. It was pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
went there because, everybody in town was invited to come see
Yeah.
the branding thing in Tri-Cities. It's Kennewick, I think,
And
technically.
I went because they always serve.
Liquor.
Yeah.
You went for the free drinks.
I went for the champagne. No, but to network, with people. And,
Right.
And it was another thing to put in my calendar.
And
so it was
I
great.
went because, being a lender in the Tri-Cities for, I guess, almost 20 years, it's Old Home Week. Everybody's there, so I get to see everybody I care about,
Yeah.
right?
And you make good connections.
That's exactly right.
And celebrate their thing that they're doing.
And I went there with one goal, and that goal was to schedule a meeting with a realtor that I don't currently do business with. Literally, that was my goal. I wrote it in my little Franklin Covey planner, and I went to my thing. And it wasn't my thing; it was their thing. So I went to their thing, and they had a lovely spread. The Monagudos always put on a fun party for the industry,
sure.
and so they had, somebody making craft cocktails, and there were 2 drinks on the menu, and they were being made, and it was beautiful. They had a presentation with the logo reveal. They had a little fashion show where you could see their merch. And then I looked across the room, and I saw you, and you were wearing some kind of off-the-shoulder gray sweater dress kind of deal. And I remember thinking, wow, that's Londa. Look at her. And later in the event, we started talking, and this is what you said to me. And I've always thought you were kind of ethereal, kind of out of my reach in my dating world. So you were never, ever someone that I considered as a possible candidate for the David Austin experience. I just didn't think you'd want to get on the ride. So anyway, I saw you across the room. That doesn't translate to radio, what you just did.
Wow. Wow. Carry on.
Okay, so I see you across the room, and you were the new productivity coach for Keller Williams. And I knew that, and so I figured I'd come over and say hello. And I did, not to date you, maybe to make you the realtor that I'd go on the next business appointment with, and I put it in my Franklin Covey planner, so I was not going to change that. And you looked at me. I was standing there talking to the big guy in lending, Jeremy. Come on, Brock, Jeremy. But I love
Not
that
that
guy.
it matters, but
Yeah, I love that guy, though. I feel he
Okay.
may have appropriated my fashion sense with my fancy
he's
cups.
his own guy.
He is.
Leave
He is.
him
I'm just
alone.
kidding.
He's a great guy.
I like that guy a lot. And
Yeah.
he's the first person I interviewed to hire when I ran Guild Mortgage. Did you know that?
No.
He was my first targeted employee. He did not come work with me. Anyway, back to the story. I see you there in whatever that gray sweater dress thing
Black.
was. Black or gray, I don't know.
Black off
My
the
rods and
shoulder
cones
sweater.
aren't working. Off the shoulders, what I remember. And I walked over to you and said hello, and you said, "Hey, Austin, how come you take all the girls in my office to drinks but me?" And I said, "Because I'm respectful." And you looked at me, and do you remember what you said to me?
I said, why, whatever does that mean?
Well, there was a what does that mean, but there was an F word in there. What the F does that mean is what you said to me.
I did.
And I said, well, your daughter is married to a lender who's a buddy of mine. Why would I waste your time and my money calling on you?
Right.
And you told me that you guys didn't work exclusively together.
Right.
And my response was, great. How about drinks at Twig's Friday at 4? Because that's what you do. You take, the realtors that you want to call out for safe, not on my turf, not on your turf, informal chat. Let's call it that.
Okay.
And you come with your notebook and you take notes and you ask questions and you ask for the business.
Which is what you did. We met Friday at Twig's, and you came in with your little notebook ready
And
to
I
go.
had on my sport coat and I'm ready to go. It's a professional meeting. And I think you might have been on a date.
I don't know. I was pretty open to wherever that might lead, if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah, and that was the farthest thing from my mind. I had no concept that was a thing.
I thought, obviously I'd seen you. I knew you were single now. I was single now, and I was like, oh, that David Austin's pretty cute. And,
I find myself odd looking.
But I wasn't looking for anything
Right.
long term. My intention was to likely never get married again.
Right.
And I wasn't looking for any kind of long term anything. I was just going to be very happy being single, traveling, working, and I could find a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction in that, and wasn't looking for anything else. But you're cute, so
I think it's fun that you say I'm cute.
yeah.
I like that.
Well, and I loved your energy. I loved being in your space. That was really attractive to me, just your energy. I thought, well, who knows what this is, but I like being in this guy's energy.
The loud, funny guy. The loud, funny guy. Let's hang out with the loud, funny guy. The funny guy always gets the girl. That's what I've been saying since I was a little kid. That's the story I've told myself, and it's always worked out. But I never thought you could possibly be someone that would want to go out with me ever. Never considered it.
But it did turn into business, that meeting, because that was Friday. On Monday, I sent you some clients.
That's right. It was a successful
yeah.
business meeting because we followed the steps. We sat down, we talked about where it hurts, and we both prescribed a problem or prescribed a solution to what hurt.
Right.
And you said, tell you what, David, I will send you those clients on Monday. There you go. So that was our first sit-down meeting.
And I think it wasn't too long after that you invited me to go hiking.
That's exactly right. Because in sales, you want to go deep with the people that you work with, form a relationship. And one thing that you told me, I didn't even know I was doing it. You told me a story about a guy who does tailgate parties for his favorite university every Saturday.
Yeah. There's a realtor that they talk about at Ninja selling training when you go. And, it's like sphere marketing
Right.
kind of. And so you don't have to market in a traditional way. So this guy loves this particular team. I don't even remember what team it is.
Let's
but
say the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I don't know if that's a team.
And every time they have a game, he throws a tailgate style party at his house.
Right.
And he invites people from different spheres of his life. So he'll invite a few work friends, a few, like the guys he plays softball with, a few of the, his kids, friends, parents, maybe if you're part of a church organization or community groups, so he'll invite different people from each of those spheres. Generally, and he tries to be really thoughtful about this, about people who would connect well, if he can be a connector of others. And I've thrown events like that, and it's actually really, really fun and really helpful. And you don't invite the same people every time. You invite different people because you're trying to connect people to each other.
Makes sense.
But anyway, what happens is 80% of his real estate business comes from those parties, and all he's doing is just having a great time. And he doesn't talk about real estate at the parties. He just is that guy, and then when people have real estate needs, they come and talk to him.
Sure. And that's great. So I was doing the same thing, unbeknownst to me. That was a sales technique. But what I did was I invited people that I wanted to get to know better to go hiking with me. And I hiked Badger Mountain.
Right.
And so I did that for years with friends of mine. In fact, my buddy JD and I hiked every Tuesday and every Thursday, and sometimes on Saturdays. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, when I invited you to come, he has never hiked Badger since. And that's a real thing.
I don't know about that.
JD from Fat Olives has been skiing instead and not hiking Badger.
Well, there you go.
And that's okay, but it ironically coincided with us beginning to hike together.
Yeah.
And actually that turned out okay for both of us because he continues to ski and I got married to the lady I was hiking with. So worked out. We got to know each other on those hikes. And I think that is exactly how our relationship happened. And because to me, you weren't a prospect.
Right. And I felt the same way.
I told you stuff I shouldn't have told you. I told you all about my dating life. I told you all about...
I told you all about mine too, because we weren't... I thought, okay, I flirted with you a little bit,
right.
The first couple of times we got together, and I'm like, he's not about it. Okay, so that's fine. But I really like being in your space. And so if you weren't going to be interested in me romantically, I still wanted to be a friend because of that energy. And the conversations that we had while we were hiking were really deep.
Right.
And no holds barred.
Right.
I mean, they were calling each other out on our stuff.
Yep.
And, I'd say to you, well, your relationships don't work because this, that, and the other thing.
And as a coach, you knew exactly what to say to make me examine what was really happening there.
Well, I asked a lot of questions.
Right.
Some of those mortality motivation questions, like if you knew you only had 3 years left on this earth, what would you do differently about your life?
It's interesting that was one of the questions. And you know what? Right now, I don't think I'd change a thing if I had 3 years left. And that's weird to say because I'm not trying to do something different than what I'm doing right now. Life is pretty awesome.
I'm not trying to do anything different, but I do have things I want to. It's mostly books I want to write.
That's exciting.
I 3 years is not enough time to write everything I want to write.
Well, you better get writing. I don't know why you're wasting time with a podcast. If you want to write books, get writing.
I just thought of another concept for a book series this morning.
What is it?
When I woke up.
Can I know? Can you say it or do you not want to?
Well, I thought it'd be super cool to write some kind of family history. Like write about my mom, who my kids adore.
Right.
Right. I always say they love my mom way more than they love me.
They loved her differently than they loved you.
Yeah, okay.
There's no such thing as they loved her more than you.
But that's not a real
deal.
There's so much of her history they don't know.
Right.
And there's so much, honestly, of my history they don't know.
Okay.
And so I thought it would be cool to give them each a set of 3 books. One, the story of her.
Okay.
One titled The Story of me,
Mm-hmm.
and the third titled The Story of You.
That's awesome. And the
So.
you being them.
Yeah, being each of them.
Right, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a cool deal.
Isn't that neat?
You could sell that as well as one of those books you buy at like a stationery store where it's the story of you and you open it up and
it
they
asks
fill
questions.
it in. Yes.
Yeah. Danielle, my oldest daughter, actually got me a book like that recently that I've been working on.
Well, maybe that's what you could use as the jump off point.
But there's some crazy stories in the family history that I know. I just shared one of them with a couple of the kids recently about how my mom came to be. Even
I think that's not a book. That's a movie. That is
really
an awesome movie.
Yeah,
Let's tell the story.
Nope, I don't
Come
want to.
on.
Nope, not in this episode.
Where can we do the Burl story?
I don't know. Sometime
Okay, if
later.
you want to hear about Burl, and I do mean you, reach out to us and we will put together a special edition of a podcast,
crazy.
Not called The Session with Londa and David, because that's what this is.
Right.
We'll put together something called Burl. I'm telling you now, it's exciting. It's got adventure. It's got action. It's got
intrigue,
abuse. It's got intrigue.
betrayal.
It's got sex and betrayal. It is a Southern Gothic story.
It is.
That has true crime woven within.
Yeah.
It's a movie. I'm telling you now, Burl is a movie, and I would like you to write it, and I will produce it.
There you go.
I can get
well, we've
funding
got
for
3
Burl.
years, apparently. No,
If my mother were still here, she would for sure write that screenplay. For sure. She's not. She's been gone too long. But if she were here, she'd do that.
And
okay.
Bringing it back.
Bringing it back to we got to know each other hiking.
Yeah.
And
we started working together more, and we started sharing clients, and I really liked how you worked.
Mm-hmm.
You work very similarly to the way that I work, and
right.
which is kind of why we're doing this podcast anyway.
Right.
And then I don't know, in August sometime I called you up and told you I was in love with you. And that was so scary for me because I was like, okay, he's not really interested at all. But he is a little flirty, but not really flirty, and I can't tell. And I don't know. I just thought I'm just going to shoot my shot.
Well,
and what's the worst that could happen is we stay friends, and that'll be fine.
And let me tell you, every childhood fantasy I ever had came true at that moment. I'm serious. Every single one. When I was 14 years old, I had a very clear picture of what marriage looked like. I didn't think it was real. I thought it wasn't real. That's what I have right now. I have exactly my 14-year-old vision of what an adult life should look like as we speak because of you.
Lovely. That's lovely.
And that is what I realized in real time on the day that you called me from Mexico and told me you loved me. And within 3 weeks, we were married.
Well, yes, because I came home and told you I don't think we can date because the town is too small.
And that was awful.
Our industry's way too gossipy. People will flip out. And I just thought, but I knew I didn't want to, honestly, the way I felt is I didn't want to wake up another morning without you.
Right. And people did freak out. There was definite freak out going on.
Oh my God, we're so dumb. We were so just in this fog of being in love,
right.
And and because it turns out you did have some feelings for me that you hadn't shared or weren't even aware of, or I
was fully aware, but no way. Like, okay. You think this is some kind of come on line. When I say to you, you look like a French model to me.
Well, it's silly. It's just you.
It's not silly. You were in a different space than I saw myself in, right? And frankly, I was happy being the guy that the middle-aged divorcee smokers went out with. I'm catnip to that group, so I enjoyed that group, and I ran through it pretty hard.
Yeah.
But
And on one of our hikes, though, you had kind of confronted my declaration of I'm never getting married again, too.
that's true.
So you had given me a lot to think about in that, too, because you just flat out, you said to me, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you don't want to get married again. You don't want to get divorced again.
That's exactly right. And that is the truth. And that made you think I had some higher knowledge than I do. I was just merely saying that I could see through the veneer that you put up for people, that you aren't someone who wants to push people away. You're someone who doesn't want to be attacked. And that's different. So you put up your dukes.
Yeah.
And you're, a little on the defensive. And
True.
I was able to cut through that because there was zero consideration of a relationship in our talks.
Right.
Which I got to tell you, thank God, because we would not be here if I was trying to.
Oh, it's very true.
If I was trying to hit that, as the kids say.
Yeah, if either one of us had that in our mind, I don't think we'd be here because we built such a strong friendship during that time. And I'd let go of the idea of ever being involved with you in any other way besides a business partner and a friend, because it just, to me, I looked at it and I thought, well, you're not interested. Of course, why would you be? And that's okay. We're going to be friends.
And I was trying to make the best of the relationships that I had and was fostering those relationships. I had a girlfriend living at my home with her kids and wanted that to work. She was in a different place than me, though. And I think that's okay. It worked out for me, and I haven't really spent any time with her since that because it was embarrassing for everyone. So, that's the one relationship, because it was the active one when you and I decided we were going to have a thing that is not repaired. That's the one relationship that's not repaired. And that's too bad. I'm sad about that.
That's because you don't like to end relationships. I'm the one who can cut people off and walk away and never think of it again. Never think of it again actually is not true. It actually haunts me.
Right.
But I like to think I can just cut people off and walk away. I can't.
Right.
I still think about relationships I lost 30 years ago. You know what I mean? So You're right. I like to pretend that I'm tough, but really I'm so emotional and so highly sensitive that I can't deal with my emotions. Sometimes I just can't let myself feel them because they're just very, very overwhelming.
Well, and now that you've said that, let's move forward in the story, because
so we got married.
But the stress that was going on in your life and the stress that was going on in my life definitely have health ramifications.
Well, yeah, and I mean, to just kind of pull the lens back a little bit and show even more of it. I went through a divorce, which I don't care who you are. It's a terrible thing. And I won't go into details of why it was bad. Every divorce sucks to go through.
That's exactly right.
So,
mine was pretty darn amicable.
Mine was too.
And it
was still hell.
Yeah.
And so, it was shocking to everyone involved. It was, the whole thing. So then the stress of the divorce, and then the stress of the life I was living, which was, listen, I worked hard. I partied hard. I hardly slept.
Drank a lot of liquor. Whiskey and scotch.
I don't know about a lot. At times, yes. Then taking on a new role, I switched real estate companies. I took on a new role at the real estate company that was, a lot. So there was just a lot going on. And during that time as well, my grandson Jack was born. While we were friends and we were hiking together, he was born, and not long after we got married, he passed away.
Right.
So there was a lot of drama in our
worlds.
Our world. Yeah. In our professional world, there was a lot of drama because there were, people were freaking out that we got married because we're so dumb. We were so excited that we just 2 days after we, we're laying in bed in Vegas on our honeymoon, and we get the video that our son James had made for us. So we decided, hey, I know how we'll tell people. We'll just post this video on social media. And Wow.
And we embargoed it. We waited 3 days, two or 3 days to release it.
Anyway,
I think the response was overwhelmingly positive, but the negatives were super negative.
They were. Yes.
Yeah.
The first response we got was that I got a text message that said, "You whore." So
well,
it was
and to be fair, that was a guy you broke up with before you went on your Mexico trip.
Yeah, and said, this is feeling a little too stifling. I don't want to be in a relationship like this. And then
it's too much like a marriage, I think is what you said. And you know
and
what?
That was honest. That was authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And then shit happens.
Right.
That's just the truth of the matter. And I didn't know I was falling in love with you. I didn't know you were even a thing. And then you were, and there we are. And we got married, and then all of that, and Jack passed away, and then there was and then COVID hit just a few months later.
Let's not jump to COVID yet, though, because to me, COVID was the greatest thing that's ever happened.
But it did change the way we did business, and it changed the industry, and it was stressful in that way. I'm just saying it was more stress.
Yes, it was definitely, it added to the stress of life. However, COVID for me was a festival of fun because it changed the way we do business for sure. Mm-hmm. It made people less interested in coming to the office to sit down with their loan expert.
Right.
And, many banks forced their employees to work from home.
Right.
Washington State shut down the entire state until, a month ago.
Right.
It changed everything, which allowed us to buy a vacation home in Florida. Well, it allowed us to spend more time in Florida.
Yes.
Without negatively impacting our businesses, which
very
is the
true.
Coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. And at the same time, because the office shut down, because of all the stress and the drama that was going on in our industry, I actually stepped down from my position as the productivity coach in the office.
Yes.
My doctor said to me, I don't know what's going on with you and your body and your numbers, but whatever you're doing, you got to stop. You have to immediately reduce your stress.
And that's going back to stress takes a toll on your body.
Right.
No matter what you think it does.
Oh, for sure.
For
sure.
A lot of physicians aren't super holistic. They're working on the symptoms. They're not working on the whole being.
Right.
And when you find someone who asks you questions about your life, not about your diet, they start with your life. Mm-hmm. They are really more attuned, I think, to the holistic picture. Right.
And Aaron Johnson at Total Care Clinic,
great guy
in the Tri-Cities in Washington, Walla Walla in Washington, is that guy. So I started reducing the stress. So I started staying home more.
That's right.
I let go of that position, which was really hard for me because it had been extremely successful. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like I had to let it go for lots of reasons. But at the same time, we got to spend a ton of time together.
That's exactly
at home.
right.
Now,
that's right.
We got a security system at the house because we had to, which, was part of the drama going on, and our comings and goings were reported. I mean, it was ridiculous, but well, it's true.
It's funny now. It wasn't funny then.
Yeah, it wasn't funny then because I was just getting more and more sick.
Right. That's exactly right.
And now I can't even be social. I can't go out anywhere, and we're just stuck at home. So what did we do? We just started traveling a lot and looking for a vacation home.
That's exactly right. And you were traveling already.
Yeah.
But the fact that we were able to continue to travel. In fact, we were on a trip to Florida, visiting my dad and looking at real estate in, I don't know if it was March or April of last year, and one of our friends whose ex-husband is a police officer reached out to us and said, "Oh my God, the state is shutting down tomorrow." And that's before any announcements were made. Do you remember that?
I do.
And we got on a plane and we flew home, but it did shut down. I thought that's poppycock. That is never going to happen. I don't know what kind of craziness this is, but it's not real. It can't possibly be real. And it did happen.
Yeah.
And when the state shut down, it never really reopened until a month ago, which is so weird. When we bought our vacation home in Florida in October of last year, the state was already fully reopened.
Yeah. We closed on it in October. So we shopped from like April to September.
Right.
In different areas of the country. We looked in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
We thought about Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yep.
We looked all over Florida and ended up deciding on Lakeland, Florida for our vacation home, which now is, as you've mentioned, rapidly becoming our more primary residence.
Yeah,
so we're here
sure.
about 3 weeks a month and in Tri-Cities about a week a month.
And it's really comforting for me specifically to be here in Lakeland, Florida, because I went to kindergarten and first grade here.
Yeah.
So, I was in the Billy Goat's Gruff kindergarten play here, not somewhere else. So for me, being able to walk down the street from the restaurant where we're having dinner and see my house that I lived in kindergarten.
Yeah, that was sweet.
What a cool thing. You know what I mean? And as a kid who moved around all the time growing up, because my dad was a fast food guy, he was the Colonel's fixer. So if there was a market that was not doing well at Kentucky Fried Chicken, my dad got the call and he went to that
Johnny
market
Austin
and turned it
to the
around.
rescue.
That's exactly right. So I moved. I think I sat down, and I've moved 36 times before my 18th birthday, and that is in-town moves
Holy
too.
smokes.
But 36 different places for a kid to live before he turns 18. That could make a kid feel disassociated and distant and sullen. But for me, what it did was it gave me a mechanism to be able to be very outgoing and build instant relationships, because it seemed like every January I was at a new school.
Right.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Until I got to junior high, and then we kind of locked down one community, and that was Lafayette, Louisiana. So when I talk about my home, I actually lived in Tri-Cities as my primary residence longer than I've lived in Louisiana in my life, but Louisiana's home to me.
Right.
My kids, however, think of Tri-Cities as home, even though they were born in Louisiana. That's where they grew up. That's where Caitlin started second grade in Tri-Cities, and Benjamin went all of his school.
Yeah, yeah.
All of it there.
And Washington will always be home to me.
Right, that's right.
Very special.
And you usually get weepy every time we land.
I'm getting a little teary-eyed
in the
now.
Tri-Cities.
I do.
Yeah.
Every time.
I think that's good.
So much of my life, my whole life up till now has been there, and and all of it. I don't want to get into it because I'm getting emotional.
You can be emotional.
Thinking about my
It's
mom
okay
and my
for you to
kids
be
and
emotional and get teary-eyed on the air. I think I've cried on the air once in 15 years as a professional broadcaster. I think I cried on the air once, and I don't remember what it was for. Isn't that odd? I don't have any idea what it was for. I remember, though, how desensitized I was to violence, because one Christmas I had to run the board at News Radio KPEL, and this is the weirdest thing ever. There was a fire at an orphanage. I don't remember what town it was in, but it was, I'd say, within 30 miles of Lafayette, Louisiana, and 12 little children died on the night of Christmas.
God.
Yes, and it was one of my favorite days on the air because I went on national radio. I was on ABC, I was on CBS, I was on National Public Radio as the reporter closest to the scene.
Well, yay you, but God, what a horrible tragedy.
Absolutely horrible, but you become desensitized as a news reporter because the grittier the story, the more exposure the story has, the more exciting it is as the guy reporting it. Does that make sense? Maybe
that's what some of the people who couldn't stop talking about our marriage felt.
Maybe, because... Yeah.
Pretty exciting news. Anyway, so we got here... and we decided to come kind of for the winter.
Right. That's right.
And give me some time to really heal and rest. And,
yes.
Sunshine's good for the soul and all that. And I don't think even the people closest to us knew how sick I had gotten and how bad it was. So,
right. So
and we didn't either.
And what
but we
we're
were
talking
about to find
about,
out.
that's exactly right. So as you hear her say just how sick she had gotten, let's not mistake this for some kind of psychological, emotional sick. This is legitimate, bad sickness.
Yeah.
And go.
Well, yeah, I think all of it. But yeah, physical. And I thought it was just my autoimmune stuff
Right.
flaring up.
Right.
Because stress does that. But we finally get landed here in October. And I thought, okay, now I've got some downtime. I'm going to start doing some of those, middle-aged. I'm almost 50 because I turned 50 in January. I'm going to start doing some of those, things that you do when you're of a certain age as a woman. So I went and got my first mammogram. My first, they used to do colonoscopies. They don't now. You poop in a box, which is super exciting.
They still do them, but the poop in a box is a quicker deal.
Yeah, they used to do it as the first line, though. Now they've got this like pre-test. Anyway, so pooped in a box. And
you met a doctor who was a local nurse practitioner, I believe, at a holistic family clinic.
So I was looking for something a little more holistic. Anyway, so I went and met with this doctor and started to, because I use bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So I was like, oh, well, I need somebody here that can do that for me.
That's exactly right.
And I get my hormones tested every 6 months. I've done that for a long time and worked with a great doctor in Tri-Cities, Aaron Johnson, who total care.
Awesome guy.
Yeah, love that guy. And he's my doctor, but they're friends and clients of mine as well.
That's right. Yep.
Doesn't get better. So, but I found somebody and I went to her and as we're talking about that, she says to me, well, when was your last PAP?
Right.
And I said, I don't remember.
And I bet she looked at you with a scolding, angry face because she does that, which I love about her.
Yes.
And told you, you need to go right now.
She said, how long has it been? And I said, it's been at least 15 years. So hear me now and believe me later.
Hear me now, believe me later.
You have to do that.
That's right.
You have to go for your annual screenings of, whatever you're supposed to do. So I didn't, because I just didn't think about it, right?
Right.
And so she said, based on some of the symptoms that you're having and the fact that it's been so long, I need you to schedule that now.
What's her name?
Demetra Bennett.
Demetra Bennett saved your life.
Yes, very likely.
And I love her for that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's a really big deal.
Okay, keep going. I almost got emotional. I almost cried number 2 on the air just now. If you're watching this, you can probably see it. You are glossy. That
scary,
cloudy-eyed cry look is happening right now, which I think is beautiful, by the way.
So I went, and then I got a call that said your PAP came back abnormal. We need to do some more testing, and this is the first of the breakdown in customer service where...
And I knew we'd get there. We're 40 minutes in, and we got there.
Oh, this might be a long one, or we could do it in 2 parts.
No, it's fine. Keep going.
The information wasn't delivered clearly.
Okay.
I had questions that the doctor who performed the test, it was his nurse who was calling me to report the information. I had questions she couldn't answer.
Right.
Well, we just need you to come in for additional testing. Well, what additional testing? She couldn't answer that. What were the results of it? She couldn't answer that. So I spent, and the next available appointment they had was in 2 weeks.
So you spent 2 weeks, and I know you, so I'm not going to exaggerate this. You spent 2 weeks fully investigating every possible thing that can come back from a pap smear.
Yes, and
every
terrified.
Single thing.
And terrified because then I coupled it with the symptoms I was having, and I thought, oh my God, this is not good. This is not good.
And what did you self-diagnose? What did you think was happening?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know, but it just didn't sound good. But I kept battling with myself. I would think this is not good. This is all pointing to cancer.
Right.
Cancer. And then I would, rein my brain back in and say, you don't know anything yet.
Right.
Just sit tight.
And I, the whole time, because I'm just a dumb galoot who believes everything's going to be okay, was like, it's going to be fine. Let's not create something that isn't here. Let's wait and see.
Right. So one point I want to make in the medical field is that whoever's contacting the patient needs to know some information other than, I can't tell you anything, you just have to come in for your next appointment.
I agree with that.
And if that's the case, I don't know anything, you just have to come in for your next appointment. They need better scripting for how to handle that and put people at ease or give them some sort of direction or something, because I had nothing.
Right.
Now, I want to say also, in everything we've talked about, all the stress that we were going through, we still worked.
Yes.
My workload didn't slow down at all.
And you can't slow down because of what's happening in your life.
Exactly. During all of that.
Right.
And I didn't lose any clients.
Right.
I took on more clients. I didn't miss a beat.
Right.
With my clients. Now, while I was going through my divorce, I will tell you, I'll be very transparent. I was very distracted. I was in an emotional turmoil. It was a disaster, and I was fired 5 times. I've never been fired.
You mean by clients?
By clients.
Right.
I've never been fired in my whole life from anything.
Right.
But while I was going through my divorce, I got fired by 5 clients, and rightfully so. I was distracted. I was a mess. But the people who did stick with me, God bless, because I needed them, right? Yeah, there you go. So 2 weeks later, I go in for, I have no idea what. They said follow-up tests.
Right.
I don't know what it's going to be. I'm on pins and needles. I'm so anxious. I have some anxiety anyway, and I'm just like off the charts anxious when I go in.
Yes.
Only to find out I'm going to have a biopsy that day.
And that's when Benjamin was here visiting. You went on a Friday thinking you were just getting another kind of pap smear, or they were going to look at your cervix with a microscope. That's what they said.
They said that is true. I had messaged the doctor through the app, and he said, we just look at your cervix with a microscope. Right. Which wasn't actually accurate.
You look at things from your cervix in a microscope is what he should have said.
He did. And then the deal is, depending on what they see, there's a biopsy. So that, I was a wreck. I mean, I was having a panic attack, and I remember I took my mask off, and the doctor said to me, please keep your mask on. We have to wear masks. Yeah. And I couldn't breathe. It was like such a disconnect. Like you're talking about reporting on the stories.
That's right.
It was such a disconnect from my humanity.
Yes.
That I was looking to the nurse for some kind of compassion, like I needed somebody to hold my hand. I needed somebody. Oh, and this was during a time because of the pandemic, you couldn't be with me. I had to come by myself. Right.
Yep.
And so I had the biopsy, 4 biopsies, and in 3 different parts of the cervix, so 1 just inside the uterus, and then they just send you on your way, and we'll call you with the results. So,
did you feel violated in that?
Well, actually,
because you didn't expect to have a medical procedure. You expected to have testing.
Right.
And you showed up for testing thinking you were going to later go out to dinner like nothing happened.
Right.
To some sort of invasive medical procedure.
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that question because I came home, I opened up my laptop, and I started writing. Because I thought, in some of the most traumatic moments of my life, I've written because I never want to forget how it feels in that moment.
Okay.
And this was one of those moments.
Okay.
That I thought I need to write all this down because I never want to forget how this feels. Just in case I ever need to tell this story, or someone else has this story and I can connect with them, or I don't know, because it was so horrific. And when I wrote about it, I said, it reminded me of being 16 years old in the back of a van in a parking lot, drunk out of my mind, when I was raped. I had an encounter that was not consensual. I was saying no, 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 and it happened anyway. And that kind of, it felt, I had that same panic. I had that same feeling afterward of violation, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Wow.
I had to have the biopsy done if I wanted to find out what was wrong. And so
you talk about police and modern policing, and how police departments need to have like social service people with them to help when there's some kind of emotional or mental breakdown with a patient.
Right.
And I wonder if doctors' offices should also have people on staff who are counselors to be involved. Gynecologists, it's interesting. I'd say in the last 15 years, maybe longer. I don't know. I'm not involved in one in that industry, but I noticed a clear shift when gynecologists brought nurses into appointments with them. And I think it's because of a shift in the legal system where people were saying they were violated, and so they needed someone there to make sure everybody felt comfortable. Maybe in a situation like the one you just described, having some kind of counselor on staff that can talk to you about the emotional ramifications of what's happening might be warranted.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know.
I think if, the doctor had been a little more compassionate toward my feelings, because all he said when I was having my panic attack, he looked at me and said, "We don't have to do this.
Put your mask back on."
Well, he said, "Put your mask back on." Then he said, "We don't have to do this."
And that's not helpful.
And it wasn't helpful. And it also, it was a catch-22. I was stuck. I had to do it if I wanted to, but I didn't have any time to prepare. So I was panicked. If the nurse had just reached out and maybe put a hand on my shoulder, for me, physical touch really calms me and grounds me. So, and I also, I want to be clear, and I understand that this may be isolated. This may not be something that other people experience. It might be just me. I don't
think
know.
You'd be surprised. I think anybody going in to find out if they have cancer is in a heightened emotional state. I don't think there's any chance that this story is isolated to you with your anxiety. I don't think there's any chance of that.
Maybe. I don't know.
And that wasn't the appointment where you were given the diagnosis.
No.
And that's
no. In fact, that
still
was
coming. Yeah,
that was more. So I went home. I had aftercare that I had to. I mean, I had no idea I was having like a minor surgical procedure. And
neither did I. And we had one of our kids here, and that was definitely a weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so went home and waited for results. And while I waited, I ordered a book on it, and I devoured information about what it could be. Oh, this was the other thing they said on the phone. This is before the biopsy. She said, you just need to come in for more testing. It could just be your HPV flaring up.
And you're like, and HPV?
I'm sorry, my what? Yeah, it could just be your HPV flaring up. It could just be a flare up maybe, but we don't know. So you need to come in for more testing. I was like, wait a minute, are you, I'm sorry, I I'm sorry, did I have an HPV test that came back positive?
Right.
And she goes, oh, yeah. Well, oh, I didn't know about that.
No one ever said anything to you. And before we got married, we went to Planned Parenthood and did a full panel of STIs, and that was not one of them that they...
No, that was not recommended. But I don't want to blame other people because I didn't have a PAP for 15 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And HPV can lie dormant in your body for years and years, or it could have been
Demetra
a
Bennett
thing.
saved your life, making you
sure.
go get that Pap smear.
Yeah.
I love her and will always buy her farm fresh eggs as a result.
There you go.
They're $4 a carton, and you need to bring cash.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they're $6 a carton. I don't know, but you need to bring cash.
They're great. So we waited, and then they called eventually with the results, which I think was about another 2 weeks, and the nurse read the pathology report to me over the phone. And I said, what does that mean? And she started rereading the pathology report. I said, no. I don't understand any of the words you're using. What does this mean? And she said, well, you have some options. You can have a LEAP procedure, which is like a laser scoop. You can have a cone biopsy, or you can have a hysterectomy.
Right.
What do you want to do? I mean, just like that. No advance warning, no prep, no conversation with the doctor. I said, well, I can't tell you right now. I've got to think about this and figure out what my best option is. And I'd really appreciate a conversation with the doctor. Well, his schedule's filling up quickly, so you need to make a decision. I'd make a decision within about a week if I were you. That was the whole conversation, and I hung up the phone, and I asked her if the results would be uploaded to my patient portal. She said yes. It took them another 2 or 3 days to upload them.
The minute she said yes, though, you ended the conversation because you knew that you would research it, and you've got some resources, and you'd figure it out. You're like Dr. Quinn, medicine woman. You're involved in every aspect of your healthcare, which is very different than how I am, but it's great because it helped you get through this very tough time. Yeah.
And another 2 or 3 days, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm just getting more and more scared. And finally I get the pathology report. I printed it, and every word I didn't understand, I looked up the definition of it.
Right.
Which was a lot because it's medical jargon. I don't know what any of it means.
And you've got a 6th grade education. That's a joke. That's funny.
No, that's my sense of humor. 6th grade sense of humor.
I don't understand this word here. It says phlebotomy.
Hey,
what
now,
is phlebotomy?
My grandma,
I'm just kidding.
My mom's mom had a 7th grade education, one of the most brilliant women I ever knew. So,
there you go.
There you go.
And that's say that again, your mom's mom?
My mom's mom.
And that's the lady that is the star of the movie Burl.
Oh, my God. Stop. But yeah, so it took me hours to decipher the information.
Right.
And then I called.
Days.
Well, yes, a couple of days.
Yeah.
Then I called my daughter-in-law, who's a nurse.
Yep. Maddie, she's great.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I think she's some kind of social media influencer. She is cool and a nurse.
Yeah.
Super cool.
She's a very special girl. She's not a girl. She's grown up, but I love her
And the mom
dearly.
to one of our grandkids who we're going to see in just a couple of weeks. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, little Eli. And so I called her and I talked with her a little bit because I needed to decide what to do. So I called my oldest daughter, who's also an avid researcher like me and has been through a lot with her fertility.
Right.
Nobody knows more about women's reproduction than Danielle.
Or as I like to say, lady business.
So I called both of them. I talked to them.
Yes.
Meantime, through all this, we made, I think, 2 trips back to Washington.
Yep.
Didn't tell a soul what was going on.
It was hard.
It was really hard.
Yep.
And business as usual.
Yeah, can't slow down. Can't stop, won't stop. We
Right.
are on, boy.
So, oh my gosh. But anyway, I talked to both of them, and they gave me a lot of really good insight. And there's some discrepancy in the medical community on my diagnosis. So,
Is it a discrepancy, or is it just how we classify? Like I'm in the medical community, the classification of what you had, your diagnosis, is murky. Some
yes,
offices say what you had is pre-cancer. Some
CID3.
yes, some offices straight up call that cancer.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what is the explanation of that?
Well, I'm not really sure why. I've asked a few people, and I don't know is the answer to that question.
I think
CADLEC system in Washington calls that cervical cancer.
right. I asked your doctor who did your surgery that question, and what he told me, and I may be butchering this, he told me that the difference in the classification really is about how invasive it is. It is for sure cancer cells, right? If it's less invasive, if it's localized to the cervix, they often call it precancer. If it's gone past that, then they call it cancer. And I think it's because of psychology. I think they don't want people to feel like they're getting a death sentence. It is cancer, but
Right.
how bad is it, right?
Yeah, and I remember when I was looking up all the words I didn't understand from the pathology report, and there was a Latin phrase. And I thought, well, what is this? And I don't remember the Latin, but I sure as hell remembered the translation of it, because the translation was cancer on site.
Right.
And that's when I just thought, this can't be real. And I
Right.
started looking up mortality rates, and I started looking up, everything, because I thought I haven't gone through all this to come to this point and have this, take me out.
Be
And
the end.
yeah. And, some might say I'm being dramatic, but I think if there's ever a moment to be dramatic, it's that moment.
I don't think anyone of value as a human person would say that to you.
Well, maybe.
Someone who is insensitive, self-centered, and focused only on their personal gratification may say that, but no one who cares about others could possibly hear someone telling this story and think, oh, too dramatic. Nope, no good.
Well, I would hope so.
Well, let me tell you, if there is anybody like that out there, I don't want to spend time with that person.
You want to
because
fight them right now?
I do. That is not how you treat people with kindness.
Right.
And I don't really believe there are people like that. I don't really believe it. Maybe people
You're
use
the
that as a throwaway
sweetest
line.
person ever.
I just don't buy it.
So, and hopefully not. But I did all the research. Based on how I read the pathology report, I thought, man, it looks to me like, with all this data and everything that I'm reading, that the hysterectomy is really the only good option. So
And Maddie said to you, get that crap out of there as soon as you can.
Yeah.
That's cancer.
Yeah.
She didn't, there were no holds barred.
So I have to give some credit to her as well.
Yeah.
For giving me, being in the medical
Yep.
profession as she is, and giving me the confidence to make the decision. So thank God for that. And so I called the office back. I said, I want to do the hysterectomy. And they said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, we have to refer you to a different doctor in the office.
Right, because the doctor that you had for the procedure was hurt somehow. He hurt his hand or something, right?
he had a really bad back injury.
Was it a back injury?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And so
That's not good. I don't mean to say that.
No.
I get it.
But it worked out in my favor, because they referred me to Dr. Alvarez.
Super, super guy.
It was like a match made in heaven.
Yep.
Like, from the moment I met with him, he heard me. He listened to all my questions.
Yes.
He answered them really compassionately.
Yes.
His nurse was fantastic as well. And she is that person who reaches out and touches your arm and says, everything's going to be okay.
Yes.
And it was like night to day once I met with him. But here's what's interesting, and this is why I believe you need to be your own best advocate, which is just a side note. This is just a personal belief.
Okay.
He said, so the hysterectomy is pretty aggressive. Let me tell you about these other options. He told me about the other options, and then I said to him, have you read the full pathology report?
Right.
Because I understand that maybe he's just looked at my chart and come in to do a consult.
Right.
Maybe he hasn't looked at the whole thing.
That's exactly
and
right.
That's fine. He said, well, no, actually, I haven't. And I said, well, will you do me a favor and take just a moment while we're here together and read through the pathology report? And he did. And when he got to the end of it, he said, I'm really sorry that I even took the time to tell you about those other two procedures. The hysterectomy is really your only option.
Right. Because it was legit. It was cancer. You had cancer. That's the big takeaway at this moment. Cancer for sure.
Yeah.
And so now we have to do surgery. And now we have to deal with the emotional ramifications of being diagnosed with cancer. And now we have to talk about how life it might not be okay.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's something that I just can't even consider personally. Right. Everything's going to be okay, the end. That's how I look at life.
Yeah. And part of what happened during that time that I am really grateful for is I decided I want to have a consulting business with you.
Yep.
And it's something I have to do before I die. Now is the time.
Is that what made you jump on Sherwood Austin Business Growth Experts?
We had played around with this idea for about a year, and that's what finally made me say, nope, let's do it.
We got to do it. I could be gone in 45 days.
None of us has any guarantee, right? It's mortality motivation, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I got to do that. I got to write, which I did start writing. I've got to do some more keynote, which I have done. You know, so some of those things that just really bring me life, and I got to go to the beach more, which we do, and all those things. So I got to make sure be in touch with
public
my kids.
Speaking and broadcasting is a thing that I didn't even know I was missing. I did it for 15 years, but now that I'm at a place in my lending career that I can take my foot off the gas a little bit. And what I mean by that is now that I've got enough of a past client base, I don't need to be as aggressively building new clientele. That doesn't mean do loans less feverishly and do loans less intently.
No, every day you're working on it.
It just means
I live with you. I see that.
I don't need to take 30 realtors out to lunch this week to build my business.
Well, the pandemic changed all that anyway.
It did.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, you know, people are going to get back to normal, I suspect.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to make a decision. Do we cut and pivot? Do we keep doing what we're doing?
Well, that's kind of the beauty of what we've done.
That's
we've realized
exactly right.
We don't have to stay anywhere
That's
or
right.
do anything. We can, at a moment's notice, pick up from here and go do something else.
And it's so odd to me, and I thank you to Rocket Mortgage or whatever they're called, the online mortgage people. They've changed the way individuals look at mortgages as well. So they don't necessarily need to sit down belly to belly with their mortgage person, but they do need to still build a relationship with a mortgage person so they can feel like you don't need to apologize. I turn down your mic every single time you go to cough, and no one can really hear it. They can hear a little bit of it on mine, but it's not a big deal. And watching the video, they can see it.
Yeah.
So maybe you should apologize to the people watching the video.
My sincere apologies. But I want to get back to the thing, because then now we've got the diagnosis. Now we know what we're going to do. We get on the schedule. We get all the pre-op. We get the, surgery scheduled. And I go back into research mode because I want to know everything that's going on. I got to tell all the kids.
Right. And we did a tour of all the kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, I want to be honest with them, but I don't want to scare anybody. It's a whole thing. And so, so I think it was March 15th, I had my surgery. So we had one more trip back to Washington before the surgery.
Right.
The end of February, we were there. And I think that's when I told all the kids. I wanted to tell them all face to face. And anyway, and then, now I'm terrified going into surgery, but I've got a new listing in Washington.
Right.
And it's getting like 8 million requests for showings
That's
because the
right.
market is hot there. And, 2 days before or a day before my surgery, I have to go in and do all the pre-op. And I kid you not, I'm driving to do the pre-op, panicking and taking calls, scheduling listings and everything. And I mean, it was nuts. But thankfully, I guess I had that distraction at the time. And anyway, so yeah, we go in the morning of the surgery. And I think that you weren't sure I would go through with it.
Well, you weren't sure you were going to go through with it.
I wanted to
That's
bolt.
the thing. You were trying to get out of it, and I knew for sure, without any doubt at all, that it was going to be okay. I knew it. But that's how I'm built, right? That's my code. That's inside of me.
It is, and I think since my mom died, I've had this really crazy, illogical, unrealistic fear of death. And
I don't know that that's illogical or unrealistic.
Well, okay. I don't know, but it feels like it. And so when my biggest fear for the surgery is that I wouldn't wake up.
Right.
And, I didn't want to scare my kids, but I sent one of my daughters, a song, and I said, listen, I'm not trying to be dramatic and I think everything's going to be fine, but just in case I'm part of the 0.4% that this goes very wrong, I want you to send this to everyone. And also I'll need you to call David right away because, he'll need support.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you said the thing that you said earlier, I don't mean to be dramatic. What about that makes you feel like that's a thing?
Okay, my whole life I grew up with a mom who said, why are you so dramatic?
Okay, so those are words that are hardwired. Yep, that's exactly right. That makes sense.
And frankly, now I get paid to be dramatic. There's a lot about what I do that,
And you married the most dramatic human in the planet.
And
you know what I mean?
Together, people can't stand us.
I saw a Gary Larson cartoon the other day and was telling David about this. It's two people side by side, and the exit sign is over the door, and one person's just pushing the door, and that's exit. And the other person has his hand on his head, and he's leaned back, and it says dramatic exit. That was hilarious. Hilarious.
That's you and I, dramatic exit. Anyway, so they, so I said, to the doctor, they said that the anesthesiologist maybe would give me something before the surgery to kind of help me. And I said, and I quote, this is a quote that I said to the doctor. This is how anxious I was, that would help me calm my ass down.
Right. You were definitely a little edgy.
And so
coming off the wall.
So did we meet Sarah before I went in or after?
Before. She was your nurse.
Okay. Let's just talk about that. So I actually ended up picking up a new client for Sherwood Austin.
We ended up picking up a new client.
Yes. But she talked to us
Yes.
before my surgery when I was in the heightened panic. And this goes back to what we talked about a couple of episodes ago about learning to be compartmentalized in your thinking.
And no matter what's going on with you, you need to be able and ready to be in work mode.
Right.
And you were panicking, coming out of your seat, coming off the walls, and Sarah came in and she was your nurse and she was making us all feel better. And she says, "Oh, wait a second. You do kind of sales coaching?" I don't know how that even came up, by the way.
I don't either, but blah, blah, blah. We followed up with her and, she and I are meeting this week. And so that's great.
And now she's a client.
But
that's great.
But so he goes, I'll get, and so the anesthesiologist came in. Now listen, I don't know what they gave me, but hallelujah.
I think it was propofol. I think it was the Michael Jackson drug.
I don't have any idea what it was.
You loved it, though.
Every bit of my anxiety went away.
Instantly.
I've never felt calmer in my life. I didn't feel like drunk. I didn't feel high. I didn't feel like that kind of thing. I didn't feel inebriated in any way. I just felt like I was dancing in a meadow of loveliness.
So note to self, if you've got to get over something horrible.
No, don't tell people to do that. No.
But what it did
I've never
is
felt
it
that
made
way
all
before.
of your
It was
anxiety go away.
It did.
All of it, every bit of it.
Yeah, and I just settled right in and had the surgery. And then you think when you come out of surgery, you're going to feel better, right? Because
Yes.
now it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not over because then they send samples off to
Right.
pathology.
That's right.
For a couple of reasons. They want to make sure it was localized to the cervix and nowhere else.
Right.
And in order to do that, they've got to take biopsies from the surrounding tissue and
Mm-hmm.
send them off, get them tested. So you actually, it was 4 or 5 days post-surgery that I finally got the call that, yes, it was localized to the cervix, pathology report otherwise came back clear,
Right.
and we're good to go.
And your doctor,
Dr. Alvarez.
yes, absolutely made me feel comfortable when he came to talk to me post-surgery, because he answered my questions like, hey, how come some people call this cancer and some doctors don't call this cancer?
right.
He took the time to have that conversation with me. And in that conversation, he said to me, listen, David, we're going to send this off to the pathology lab to get results and find out that everything's localized. But I was in there for quite some time, and I only saw what looked like affected tissue at the site that we already knew about.
Right.
And I didn't see any other signs of cancer in there at all. I think we've got it all, but we're going to double check and re-verify
Right.
and get the lab results. I think they'll confirm my visual inspection that I think everything's good to go.
Right.
And I got to tell you something. The fact that he told me that took away for me
Right.
any fear. And
and
I love that.
And I got that report as well, but I didn't feel that relief until 5 days
Right.
post-surgery when I got the call that said that. And I just broke down crying and thought, finally I can breathe. I felt like
Right.
I hadn't taken a full deep breath for months.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very hard to watch you during that time because I love you. And I think spending time seeing you scared, because you have such a tough persona, you have such a strong chin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look like somebody who can take a punch is what I'm saying. And we now know that's not true because,
Yeah.
an 8-ounce racquetball takes you down, takes you out.
It does. It does. It hurts.
Not even hit hard. But still, that's
you keep
neither here
saying
nor there.
that, but
I
you
did
don't know
not
how
hit that.
hard you hit
Let me
it.
tell you something. I was hit in
my
the
God.
face by a lady who was sponsored, a professional racquetball player. That was hard.
Oh, okay.
She hit the dickens out of me.
Well, you know what?
And you know what she said to me? Let me tell you something. I immediately apologized about hitting you, but Heather, who's a great lady, and she's in healthcare, by the way, but she's also a racquetball player, she said to me, shouldn't have looked back, because it was when I turned around to see where she was on the court that ball smashed me right in the face.
Right. So I should stop being so dramatic is what you're saying?
No, I don't think that at all. I'm saying I barely hit you.
Well-
She hit me hard, and instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, said, shouldn't have looked back.
Oh my gosh.
Which I shouldn't have
Well-
looked back. That's absolutely true.
Well, fine. What I do want to though mention in the hospital, this is important
yes.
for me to mention.
Okay.
In the
Here
hospital,
we go. Serious face.
I had the most fantastic care. Lakeland Regional Medical Center gave me fantastic care. Every CNA, every nurse, every doctor, every clerk at the counter, I mean,
Even the girl that cleaned the room.
was phenomenal.
Every single person that we encountered was great. And the best thing about it, I will say, is every single person that we encountered was happy to be at work.
They were. What was important to me is they treated me like a human. They saw the humanity in me. They saw me and they heard me and they spoke to me as if I mattered.
Yeah, they spoke Londa,
And
which
that
is
was really
important. Yeah,
during
absolutely.
that time.
And the only thing that was weird to any of them, and I think it was weird to all of them, is that you refused the painkillers, the narcotics that they give you post-surgery. You refused. You only
Right.
accepted ibuprofen, I think. I don't know if that's true. It could be Tylenol. I don't know. Could have been
Yes.
acetaminophen, could have been ibuprofen. But
Yes.
that's all you took. You did not take
Well,
any of the pain relief, and I think that's why you 2 weeks later were fully operational like nothing ever happened.
fully operational is a stretch, but I didn't. There's a reason I didn't. There's a reason that I refused that, and it's because I've had one other surgery in my life. I had my gallbladder removed when I was 23.
Yes.
And coming out of anesthesia, I was really, really, really sick, very, very nauseous, and I didn't want to be. I knew because of the research I did, I knew that the narcotics could make me more nauseous.
Right.
And I didn't want to be dealing with like being foggy and in and out and being nauseous.
Yes.
As it was, I was nauseous for 2 hours after coming out of surgery. But
I would tell you that your doctor, Dr. Alvarez, was shocked at your 2-week appointment.
He was.
That you not only looked like $1 million, which you did. You were dressed similarly to the way you're dressed today, very stylish, very hip, very flashy. You're a flashy dresser. I love it. Anyway, he said to you during that appointment, and I wasn't there, so I had to go by your dramatic reinterpretation of the event. I'm just kidding. That he said, you don't look like somebody who had a hysterectomy 2 weeks ago. In fact, most people who have a hysterectomy need help into the appointment. And then he said to you, but the good news is you look pretty good, so you can start driving again.
Oh, yeah.
And you had driven yourself to the appointment.
I didn't know. They said no driving for 10 days. It was 14.
Right. There you go.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah, you didn't mess around at all. You were
But some of that
were ready to vacuum on day 3. I had to stop you from doing it. You were
wasn't.
fully
No. I followed the doctor's orders, but I also
did.
had my own.
But I reminded you a couple times. No, you can't do that. I'll do that.
I also had my own regimen that I was doing post-surgery, pre-surgery and post-surgery.
Right. Your fitness level absolutely played a part in your fast recovery. Absolutely, no question.
I take vitamins and supplements.
That's right.
I kind of designed a regimen around that, specifically for healing and all that stuff. I'm a little bit of a hippie that way, I guess. But
I would not call you a hippie, but yes, you're definitely into holistic medicine, and that's okay. That's good.
And 4 weeks post-surgery, we traveled to Washington for 4 or 5 days, and that went great. And, and now I feel completely normal.
And how long has it been right now? 7 weeks? 7.5, 8 weeks?
I don't know. It was March 15th.
Yeah.
So whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, the day they told me I could go back to working out and all my normal activity was amazing. That was fantastic.
The 6 week mark for me was the best part.
You're ridiculous. I mean, it was okay.
Yeah. Well, you gotta be careful.
What I mean? Yeah, and I'm very, very thankful to be, where I am today, and I hope that somebody hears this who can gain something from it, and maybe it's in. It could be in any number of parts of the story, because I've been I chose purposefully to be very honest, very raw, and very authentic in this conversation, even though it's scary.
Well, and you are one of the most authentic people I know, and you usually don't pull any punches. As a defense mechanism, you sometimes put up your guard.
For sure.
But I got to tell you, you are, when someone gets past the veneer, so sweet and loving, so different than the person you portray yourself to be.
Not.
Yes, you are.
I'm a badass bitch.
Okay, say what you want. But you're a sweet girl who has a lot of fears and,
It's true.
Needs somebody who wants to hold her hand. And I'm thrilled that you let me be that person. That's a wonderful thing for me because I need that. I need to be that person.
Coming to a place where that doesn't feel like a weakness has been and continues to be a journey for me.
Why would that be a weakness?
Needing someone else, needing people, being emotional, all of that was
everybody needs somebody.
Weakness.
Everybody needs somebody.
Formative years.
Somebody to love. Freddie Mercury said it best with Queen. It's true.
It is true, though. It is. And you know, I'm glad I'm here now. I can't change anything in the past, but I'm certainly glad to be here in this place today. I think I'm a much more loving, compassionate, and whole human.
Okay, I like that. All right, let's put a bow on this because we're almost an hour and a half into this conversation, and people who really want to hear this, we're going to have to put that in the introduction when we release this.
Yeah.
That it's a longer version than normal. They'll see it, but
you know what?
It's good though. It's good.
If one person says, "Oh, she got raped at 16, and so did I, and she kept going, and so can I." Great. If one person says, "Oh, you know,
he got a divorce and still found love."
Yeah.
Right.
You know, if one person finds she has terrible anxiety, but still does XYZ, that's all I care.
Right.
One person to be encouraged in some way by this. Really.
Right. I don't really know how to classify this episode of The Session with Londa and David because it's so
just very personal. So
different than what we've been doing. But you know, I think it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A new beginning. It's a celebration of possibilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe it'll encourage someone to not feel stuck where they are. You're not stuck. I got news for you. You're not stuck.
Well, that's true.
There's more to come.
That's exactly right.
Just go do it.
And I always have told people, and I've told myself this, think about the worst time of your life. I don't know what it was for you. I don't know what it was for me, but the very worst time of my life, I got through.
Right.
Here I am. So it does get better. It gets better. This has been The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin, and we've been joined for the last hour and 25 minutes by Londa Sherwood Austin, founder, owner, president, and CEO of Sherwood Austin Business Growth
I do all the heavy
Experts.
lifting.
We didn't have to dance this whole outro.